Hello everybody, welcome to another video, and today I'm talking the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, thoughts and theories on the entire franchise. This should be the only Elm Street video you ever need to watch. I'm going through each movie, giving my thoughts, giving a rating, giving a review, going through the entire backstory history of Nightmare on Elm Street. If you're a Freddy fan and you like this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you have not. Okay, where did Elm Street come from? Where did this brainchild from Wes Craven, where did it originate from? Well, back in the 80s, Wes Craven had read an article where it was about a boy who kept having these nightmares and waking up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night. Think about that. 3-4 nights in a row, waking up in a cold sweat. Parents come running to the room. Hey, what's going on? Just freaked out, totally in a cold sweat. Never happened to me, but imagine Wes reading this article. And then on the 5th or 6th day, the kid screams again. Parents run the room and the kid is dead. He's gone. Finished. And what happened to him? Who knows? He was having a reoccurring nightmare, days in a row. Something in his sleep got to him. They later found in his closet a coffee pot showing that, of course, he had tried to caffeinate himself all night, keep himself from sleeping. And from this, Wes Craven had the idea of like, okay, maybe something was actually after him in his dreams, and thus spawned the whole ideology of Freddy Krueger. Where did Freddy himself come from? Well, Wes again thought back to his days living in an apartment as a kid. Imagine at your apartment, top of the building, looking outside in the street, seeing a scrungy, old, potentially homeless man in the street, walking around aimlessly, and suddenly that old man looks up in the window and makes eye contact with you. Would freak the shit out of any kid, right? So this happened to Wes. The old man saw him. The old man actually smiled, gave a creepy smile, and then started to walk towards the front door of Wes's apartment complex. So Wes watched this guy maintain eye contact as he walked to the front door, and then Wes went outside of his apartment to the stairway and listened as the front door to his apartment opened up. Someone came in, and then slowly hearing steps coming up the stairwell of the apartment. So this old man thought to really creep out this kid so much by coming to the apartment. That's how Wes took it, and thus began his imagery of what Freddy Krueger was. An old man so creepy, wanted to scare this kid, went out of his way to scare this kid, and thus Freddy Krueger was born. All right. Buckle in. I'm going to go get some caffeine. Meet you guys back in a moment, and we're going to go through the entire franchise. Okay, so I have my caffeine. I'm ready to go. Let's talk Nightmare on Elm Street. So Wes Craven had this brilliant idea, wrote the script, shopped it around, and nobody wanted anything to do with it. Nobody knew what to do with that. You got to remember, this time, slashers were the craze, but they were more generic, guy wearing a mask, going around killing teens type of slashers. Friday the 13th, Halloween, Slumber Party Massacre, a lot of imitators of that. So Wes is coming to the table with this dream demon guy killing you in his dreams, and studios just didn't know what to do with it. He screened it for, or actually he brought it to Paramount. Paramount didn't want it. So luckily, New Line Cinema, a small studio back then who, thanks to the success of the Elm Street franchise, would later on go to do the Blade franchise, of course, Lord of the Rings. But this was the house that Freddy built, and they took a chance on Wes Craven and the Elm Street script, and we're off to the races. We cast Heather Langenkamp as Nancy. We have Johnny Depp playing Glenn, and of course, the best casting job, the casting decision that would really make this franchise thrive for the next 10 years after this, was casting Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. He had a meeting with Wes. Wes originally wanted someone older to kind of represent that old creepy man from his apartment days, but he saw something in Robert Englund and was like, hey, you're the right guy for Freddy. And so that really sets the tone for the first film, because Robert Englund's going to make Freddy his own character from this very first film. Now, what do I think about the first film? The first film, of course, is heralded as an all-time classic film. I have to admit, I was higher on the first film years ago than I am now. On watches now, I see more flaws than I used to see, but I still think it's probably a top 20 horror film. In fact, it's in my top 20 horror films of all time. Freddy himself, this is early in Freddy's working days as a dream demon, in my opinion. That's why Freddy is a little bit more serious here. He's more attention and detail on his job. That's my theory about Freddy as we go through the franchise, that by the time you get to Freddy's Dead, Freddy's like someone who's been on the job for 20 years, just waiting for the pension to kick in, no longer taking the day-to-day responsibilities of the job very seriously, instead, doing video game Nintendo deaths and nice hearing from you, Carlos. That's Freddy and Freddy's Dead. But Freddy here in part one, this is early on in his career, so he's taking the job much more serious. So we do get a more serious, demonic version of Freddy. He's still funny, he's still goofy, no doubt about it, but this is one of the better representations of Freddy if you like scary Freddy. Heather Langenkamp as Nancy is fantastic. She gives a great performance, establishing herself as one of the best final girls of all time, along with Laurie Strode, along with Sidney Prescott. There are some things about the film that I'll sort of talk about that stand out to me. One thing is that, in the middle of the film, the dream doctors are studying Nancy as she's locked in all these cords and laying in the bed, and she goes into her nightmare. They're studying her dream patterns, her dream rhythms, the wavelengths and stuff like that. And she has an encounter with Freddy in her dreams, and when the dream's over, she brings Freddy's hat out the damn dream. And it's never mentioned again, it's never talked about again. But if you're studying her, if you have dream doctors studying Nancy and she brings a damn hat out the dream, this should be one of the biggest scientific discoveries in the history of studying dreams. I mean, this should be like, forget about the rest of this film, that should be on the cover of National Geographic the next day. Like, oh my God, science made groundbreaking discovery as teen girl brings hat out of her dream. So the fact that that doesn't get any attention on it all is actually kind of hilarious. Okay, our teen cast. Of course, this film is doing the psycho thing where you think Tina's the main character, but then she's killed off 20 minutes in. It's done very well here because honestly, in the first 20 minutes, I do think Tina's the main character. She has the opening dream sequence with Freddy. Freddy's clearly after her. So when she dies, it is pretty shocking, and it is one of the most gruesome deaths in the entire franchise. So Tina's death is a huge standout. Johnny Depp's character, Glenn, who probably has always had a crush on Nancy all throughout their childhood. We don't really get a sense of, are they a couple? Are they going to be a couple? They clearly like each other, but I'm not sure if they're quite boyfriend and girlfriend. The only problem with Glenn's character, well, there's two. The first thing is, there's kind of a mysterious element of like, I don't know how much he buys into the idea of Freddy. We don't really get into Glenn's head to see like, how much was he in on this Freddy thing? Did he really believe all of it? Was he just being supportive of Nancy? There is a shot early in the film where it kind of establishes that, oh, he's been dreaming about Freddy also. So he knows what they're talking about. So they do give that hint. But it would have been nice for Glenn to have one conversation with Nancy where he gives his thoughts on the whole Freddy thing and is he on board with it. That, and then Glenn's death scene, as epic as it is, being pulled into a damn bed with more blood coming out the bed than humanly possible. I don't know where all that damn blood came from. That couldn't have been just Glenn's blood. But the setup to that makes Glenn look like one of the biggest idiots of all time, because Nancy tells him the plan is, we're going to meet at 12, I'm going to bring Freddy out my dream, and you cold clock him with the bat. It's a very simple premise, simple idea. Glenn agrees, I'll be there at 12 o'clock, So then he just goes and lays on his bed and starts to fall asleep. And mind you, the last thing Nancy says to Glenn is, whatever you do, don't fall asleep. Very simple instructions for you to follow, Glenn. I mean, this is the girl that you like, that you probably want to be with. You got to come through in the clutch here. Instead, he lays on his bed and falls asleep. Okay, that's fine. We forgive you for this stupid horror movie mistake, Glenn. You are a character in a horror film, a teen. Probably haven't gotten good sleep the last couple of nights, so you doze off. But his mom walks into his room and wakes him up at 11:45. They show the clock. It's 11:45. Like, Glenn, in 15 minutes, you're supposed to be at Nancy's house to help her with this plan. And what does Glenn do? He lays back down and falls asleep again. I mean, listen, of course, he doesn't deserve to die, but he made it very easy for Freddy to come and kill his dumbass. I mean, it's 11:45. Why aren't you getting out of bed and going to help Nancy? Okay, either way. This film has great, fun dream sequences. The whole thing feels like a damn fever dream. You really don't know when is reality, when is the dream sequence. So it does a good job of blurring those lines of reality. It's one of the strengths of the film. The ending, the ending is one of those things on rewatches where I do wish the movie had a bigger budget or something, because some of the stuff at the end just stands out in a very negative way. Nancy brings Freddy out the dream with the idea, which is going to be repeated in the franchise a lot, the idea that when you bring Freddy into the real world, he's vulnerable, you can take him out. She brings him out the dream, and then Freddy gets hit with all the Home Alone tricks, damn hammer hit in the stomach. Freddy's going, oh, my stomach. Freddy falling down the stairs, looks like a very clumsy bad guy at the end, but that can be forgiven. I mean, listen, for the budget, this is a good plan for Nancy, but when she sets Freddy on fire and Freddy goes running around the basement, and you see like someone who looks about 100 pounds heavier than Robert Englund with an oversized, huge head. I mean, just cut away here. Don't show the shot of stunt double not looking like Robert Freddy running around. Just looks ridiculous. And then, of course, the very, very end, this terrible dream sequence that, Bob Shea wanted to be in the film because he wanted sequel bait. He wanted to hint at the idea of Freddy's still alive. Set up a sequel for me, Wes. Do this one thing for me. And we get, a doll of like Freddy's mom or Nancy's mom being pulled into a little thing. And it just looks absolutely terrible. The last 20 minutes needed a bigger budget. And it's the only real big thing to me that keeps the film from being like a perfect horror film. Because the first half of the film, the setup, Freddy himself, Nancy, Glenn, it's all good stuff, and Wes is directing the shit out of this film. I just wish the ending, the last 20 minutes, had a much bigger budget to really see Wes's vision through completely. Okay, but this movie was a huge hit film, huge big hit at the box office, made guaco money, so of course we're going to rush out a sequel a year later, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Apparently, they didn't really ask Nancy to come back, Heather Langenkamp, so there was no plan to revisit Nancy here in Part 2. Heather Langenkamp's idea is that they want the Elm Street house, to be the ongoing thing, that whatever happens in this house, this is the haunted house where Freddy chooses whoever lives there to kind of be the crux of his plan. Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare 2, has a lot of hype online. A lot of people feel like even though it is different from the rest of the franchise, it's one of the standout films. I saw Dave McCrae say like for him Part 2 is bigger than Dream Warriors, or better than Dream Warriors. And I understand this is like a one-off film. This film doesn't really fit in the canon with the rest of the franchise. Yes, it does follow up with the first one. It has, our new characters Jesse finding Nancy's notebook or journal, so it is connecting to the first one. But Freddy's plot here to take over Jesse's body and use him to kill people, it's kind of nonsensical in a way, and it doesn't really make sense, and it doesn't really fit into the rest of the plot. I mean, whatever Freddy was attempting here, he never attempts it again in the rest of the franchise. So this experience was so bad for Freddy, he was like, I'm never trying this shit again. And why would he even attempt that? Because, I mean, isn't Freddy stronger as a dream demon, coming into people's dreams, killing teens in their dreams, using their fears against them? That's the strongest version of Freddy. So why does he think taking over Jesse as a human being would make him more stronger? I would think it would make him more vulnerable, because then someone just has to kill Jesse and that kills Freddy also. So I don't think the plan makes much sense here. That said, what stands about Nightmare 2 is that the Freddy makeup, how Freddy looks, is probably the best in the franchise. I make no bones about it. Freddy looks evil. Freddy looks scary. This makeup is on point. So I do give the makeup people and Robert Englund's performance a hell of a lot of credit. A lot of people have problems with the pool scene because Freddy's coming out in the real world, and I understand that Wes Craven didn't like that scene. And that scene, there's something cool about it, but also Freddy next to teenagers, it makes him look small. Like size-wise, it just takes away some of his aura when he's around a bunch of people who are actually taller than him and bigger than him. And it looks like these teens could just gang up on him and beat his ass, but I didn't like that scene that much. Grady's death scene is probably the standout scene in Part 2 because you have this wonderful makeup job of Freddy coming out of Jesse. And then the character of Grady is the one character in the franchise, or in Part 2 at least, the one impactful death. When he dies, you actually feel bad. You grow to like Grady throughout the film as him and Jesse's friendship starts to take off. And it's the one death that has any impact, the one impactful emotional moment in the film. And then we get to the ending. The ending is some interstellar type stuff because, it's the power of love saving the day. Jesse and his girlfriend's love for each other is going to somehow impact Freddy and have Freddy turn into, not Freddy, not strong Freddy, but weak Freddy. And the first one, it was more the solution was, if you don't fear Freddy, you take away his power. But this one, it's the power of love. The power of love defeats Freddy. And I'd buy that a lot more if it wasn't a teen romance where the teens just met each other. I mean, Jesse just moved into town a couple months ago. His stuff is still in boxes in his room, so how close can him and Lisa be? Like, If you're telling me the power of love is going to defeat Freddy, it's got to be Jack and Rose on the Titanic, Romeo and Juliet, Harry and Sally. I mean, Jesse and Lisa just is not a strong enough love. I mean, do they have any future after this film? Probably not. They probably broke up by prom. So, but I understand people like part 2 a lot. For me, it's not one of the standouts in the franchise, but it's kind of a unique film, and it feels like a solid side quest for Freddy. It's not going to really fit into the overall canon and narrative. But Freddy's makeup is just very well done. Now, of course, this film also made a lot of damn money. So based on this, of course, we're getting a part 3. This time, now Wes Craven didn't have any real involvement in part 2. He didn't like the script, so he sat that one out. But he did help with the script on part 3 for Dream Warriors, although there was kind of a struggle between his draft and then some new people came on to rewrite the draft, and whose draft ended up seeing. How much of Wes Craven's vision did we see in part 3? We don't know. It went to writer's arbitration. You have like 4 or 5 names on the final writing credits. And who helped write part 3? The guy who wrote Shawshank Redemption, Frank Oz, with Frank Darabont, I guess I should say. So pretty amazing stuff here. Okay, Dream Warriors, I think, not only the best sequel in the franchise, but probably the best horror sequel ever. It's in the top 5 or top 10, I would say. For a slasher franchise, usually you get to part 3 and you're starting to get on the downturn, the downward slope. A lot of slasher franchises can sustain quality up until part 4, it feels like. And then part 5 is usually a huge drop off. You think of like Halloween 5, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Friday the 13th part 5. Don't come after me, New Beginning fans. I just don't like the movie that much. But it's rare that part 3 in a franchise is maybe the best in the franchise. And that's what Dream Warriors is. And the reason is because it feels like the perfect mix for Freddy. Freddy's giving one-liners here. He's starting to be a little bit comedic. He's starting to be the star of the show. But it's not full-blown, stand-up comedian Freddy that you get in part 5 and part 6. So for scary Freddy fans, you have a nice mix here. You get some of scary Freddy. For funny Freddy fans like myself, we're getting also comedic Freddy as well. And then you have a great cast of characters, the Dream Warriors, Kincaid, Joey, Taryn, the Wizard Master. You have a great adult cast. Bringing back Nancy, Neil the Doctor. Now, Neil the Doctor is a special character because Freddy's mom chooses to actually open herself up to Neil's mom. And that means something. That's like she could have revealed herself to Nancy, which would have actually made more sense. But she chose Neil. And so that makes Neil, for me, feel like the main character in this film. And I'm puzzled that Neil doesn't come back ever in the franchise again. We never see Neil again in the franchise, which is quite puzzling to me. Patricia Arquette as Kristen, a little bit overrated as a final girl, in my opinion. I'd never really get on board with her the same way I do with Nancy or Alice after her. But people have really overhyped, in my opinion, Patricia Arquette's performance and her likability and her strength as a character. I don't think she's the stand amongst the Dream Warriors. I think Kincaid and Taryn are both better Dream Warriors than Kristen. And I think she's like when Tuesday Night takes over the role in part 4, I'm not like, oh my God, I wish Patricia Arquette was here. I miss her so much. I'm like, oh, okay, rolling with the punches here. Lawrence Fishburne has a small role in Dream Warriors, and I do wish his character actually was in the movie more because he's in the first half sparingly, but he kind of always shows up. And not to say he has to have a death scene, but it felt like they could have done more with Lawrence Fishburne's character. But nice to see in hindsight, like, oh my goodness, do you remember the time that freaking Morpheus took on Freddy? That would have been fantastic to see, but we never get that. The dream characters who die, Wizard Master and Taryn. These are impactful deaths because we spent the whole film kind of not falling in love, but kind of emotionally investing in the Dream Warriors and their backgrounds, specific things. For Taryn, she used to have an issue with drugs, and that comes through in Freddy's fight with her, which is a great, fun death scene. And, the actress who played Taryn says that people wrote her letters saying that, hey, this scene helped me get off drugs. So this is a great scene. Should Taryn have survived? I like her more than Joey. I didn't need Joey to survive, to be honest, but I understand it in a way. Kidnapping Joey does make sense. But Taryn surviving would have been nice, but also her death meant something, was impactful, so I think that had to happen. The Wizard Master, I'm confused. This guy knows probably board games, video games, all type of computer games. He knows everything inside out, probably Dungeons and Dragons up the yazoo. He's got the advantage over Freddy. He's blasting with his wizard powers, and he chooses to run at Freddy. Get close enough to Freddy where Freddy just reaches through his bullshit, wizard rays and stabs the shit out of him. I don't understand what kind of stupid wizard master. Why would you do that, man? Just keep your distance. Distance is your friend. Close proximity to Freddy is not ideal, man. I don't know why he does that, but he meets a death that's sort of deserved because he just ran at Freddy. You should have kept your distance, Wizard Master. Great ending here with Dream Master. I don't know, everything just works in this film. The special effects also are amazing in Dream Master. Let me go back for a second. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1, 3.5 out of 4 stars for me. Part 2, I'm giving 2.5 stars out of 4. But Dream Warriors, I'm giving a 4 out of 4 rating. So for me, it's a 4 out of 4. The first and only perfect film in the franchise. No film is perfect, but Dream Warriors is a horror film and what it's trying to accomplish gets close enough to perfection for me to give it the coveted 4 stars. I like Dream Warriors a lot. Okay, let me take a quick break to get some caffeine in here. First video in a while, I didn't mess up bringing a non-caffeine drink. I have actual caffeine here. Let's get to one of my most underrated horror sequels of all time. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, Dream Master. Unpopular decision to kill off the Dream Warriors in the first 20 minutes. But if you're going to bring Freddy back, then this was, I guess, the way to go. And I'm okay with it. I think Kincaid gets a solid death. I think Freddy actually shows respect for Kincaid. He kills him in a very light way. And they let Kincaid get off a nice one-liner before he dies. See you in hell. Tell him Freddy sent you. It's a great death scene. Joey's death scene. How the hell do they explain that? He's in the waterbed, but it looks like the waterbed is sealed back up. How the hell is his parents thinking, did he get in the waterbed and then it's sealed from the top still? That is a hilarious scene. Kristen had to go. Tuesday Night had to go. The best contribution from Tuesday Night wasn't actually her acting here, playing Kristen. It was her contribution to the soundtrack. Over the opening credits, they play her song Nightmare from Tuesday Night, and it is a great Nightmare on Elm Street song. Fantastic soundtrack. The soundtrack for Part 4 is just great. Drama-rama, anything. I love those montages. I love the music in Part 4. Alice introduced initially as a meek sort of a final girl who takes some time to develop. She comes out of her shell as the movie goes on, but by the end of it, I'm completely on board with Alice. Completely. In fact, by the end, I'm feeling like she's one of the best final girls in horror films. Super underrated. I've noticed in the comments that Alice gets a lot more love than Nancy these days, so I think there is a changing of the guard in terms of public perception or horror fans' perception of the two final girls. I do think Alice is catching up with Nancy. And I think in years from now, I think there may be a poll where Alice may actually beat out Nancy for the top final girl in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. The time loop scene was pretty creepy to watch. Because that feels like a real dream sequence. Like time does mess with your head, visuals mess with your head, so I do like the time loop scene. Rennie Harlan directs the shit out of this film. Rennie Harlan would go on to do, Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger, Deep Blue Sea. He's a great director, and the visuals here are on point. They call this film the MTV Nightmare because at this point, Freddy had blown up. By the time Part 4 came out, Freddy was, a bigger mainstream pop culture icon than Jason or Michael ever was. This is just the truth. Freddy peaked higher than all of them. So many pop culture references at that time. The culture zeitgeist. He was in music videos, had 1-800 hotlines. The president mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street in a speech. Freddy was everywhere, and to no surprise, because of that, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 is the highest grossing slasher of the 1980s. That's right. When you think of yourself, box office-wise, what's the biggest slasher film of the 80s? I'm here to tell you, it was Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. What else stands out here? Well, I think the strength of the film, in the first half especially, is the brother-sister dynamic between Rick and Alice. And I thought they should have been the two final characters. Dan gets kind of pigeoned in as like a romance between him and Alice, but it never really makes sense. It never really takes off. The romantic chemistry's not there. This feels like a great film for a brother-sister dynamic. And it almost happened. I mean, Rick's death scene was so low budget, like Robert Englund's not even there in his kung fu death scene. He's facing Invisible Freddy, and they thought the scene was so bad, they were like, listen, can we just keep Rick alive? And the only thing that held that back was that, unfortunately, they'd already filmed the death scene, or the funeral scene, with Rick getting out the casket, and they'd already filmed that. So like, hey, if we keep him alive, we already went to the trouble of filming that funeral scene. So they decided to go with Rick being dead, but I would have liked Rick to be there with Alice at the end. The strength of the family unit, that being the core thing there. And the ending here is beautiful. I mean, the whole church fight with Freddy and Alice is one of the best final scenes in the Elm Street franchise. And it's a beautiful ending for Freddy when the souls he's entrapped, enslaved, kind of come out of him, eat him alive. And those souls traveling up to, I guess, Nightmare, Elm Street, heaven, you can hear the souls flying past Alice. And that's a beautiful moment in the franchise. It's a touching scene, to be honest. And it does hint at the idea, the kind of a dark idea that all the souls that Freddy killed up until part 4 are free. But everybody killed after part 4 still trapped inside of Freddy, because we never see those future souls freed again. So that's kind of dark, but it's a great touch again. And if this was the end of the franchise, this is probably the best ending for Freddy. The way Alice defeats Freddy here, of course, the box office is so big, you had to bring him back. But in hindsight, you could have ended with part 4 and you had a good thing going. That would have been perfectly fine. Okay, let's move on to Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5. And I have to admit, this is where the franchise starts to go completely off the rails. Elm Street 5, A Dream Child, it's not a bottom-of-the-barrel sequel in terms of all of horror lore. This is not like Hellraiser Part 7 or Wrong Turn Part 5. But it's not a good sequel in the Elm Street franchise. It's definitely one of the worst sequels, if not the worst sequel in the franchise. For me personally, I just don't like the Dream Child concept. I would rather Freddy have come back a year later and just stalked Alice and her friendship group in a normal way. The whole, she's pregnant and Freddy's using the unborn baby to get into Alice's head and give rebirth to a Freddy. I didn't like any of that stuff. I don't like the Jacob actor. I mean, it's not his fault. It's just kid actors in horror films sometimes are hit or miss, and sometimes just the director making them give weird lines in awkward situations, and Jacob being like, come on, Freddy, let's do this thing, and not doing Freddy voice just never works for me. A thing in horror film you always see is that, a character's friendship group is killed, and then a year later they have a whole new friendship group, and they're all acting like they've been friends for years. And that's what we get here. I mean, this is like a year or two later after Dream Master, and Alice has a whole new group of friends. They're all acting like they're childhood, long-term best buddies. How, Sway? How? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's Dan's friendship group, and Alice has just kind of inherited that. But the new characters, Mark, Yvonne, Greta, they're mostly solid enough. Mostly. Not all of them. One of them I got a diss in a second, but the movie does a good job of killing off Dan in the first half an hour. I never really got on board with Dan and Alice, their romance, their chemistry, none of that stuff. And Dan goes out in a blaze of glory because this motorcycle death scene is one of the best death scenes in the franchise. Anything else I say bad about number 5, there's a great death scene here. Freaking Dan turning into Ghost Rider. Bad year, Dan! That's a great death scene for Dan. If you don't even watch the film, just watch that scene on YouTube. If you can find the uncut version, you can't go wrong with that. Greta's death scene, also dark as hell. She's being fed her own insides. And then we get to Mark and Greta, or Mark and Yvonne. And on one hand, Mark is on board with Alice's plight from the very beginning, jumps into action, helps Alice research Freddy, doing what he can to help take on Freddy. On the other hand, you have negative, lecturing, skeptical Hippo Yvonne all throughout the film, always talking shit to Alice, seeming to be a bad friend, an uncaring friend, a non-believing friend. You have those two characters, and the movie decides to kill off Mark and keep Yvonne, and I just don't understand why. Yvonne deserved a classic swimming pool death scene, but instead she gets to live while poor Mark gets killed with his own comic book reality world. Okay, that's a fun death scene, admittedly. Super Freddy is a fun death scene, but I don't understand why Mark has to die and Yvonne gets to live. The movie's beautiful. Again, the director of this, also a director I like. He would go on to do Judgment Night from the 90s, which is fantastic. But never really get on board with the Dream Child concept. I would say that Lisa Wilcox as Alice is even better here than she was in part 4. These two films together, you see such a growth in Alice's confidence, her acting ability, everything is on point in part 5. So I understand exactly why Alice is so popular. This film bombed at the box office. Dream Child did not make money. It was not profitable. And that made New Line Cinema say, hey, maybe we should get out of the Freddy business. Let's wrap this up with one more shebang with Freddy's Dead in 1991. Rachel Talalay directing. She had worked on the previous films. Now here's our chance to direct. I'm a longtime defender and proponent of Freddy's Dead. You've seen me do multiple videos talking about Freddy's Dead. It's nowhere near as bad as people say. And I still will beat that drum until the day I die that Freddy's Dead is a decent film. Decent cast of characters. You know, Carlos, Spencer, Tracy, John Doe. Fun death scenes. I don't care what anybody says. Nice hearing from you, Carlos. It's a great fun death scene. Spencer's video game death, I know it's over the top, but it's still a lot of fun. You know, John Doe's scenario is fun. You have a fun almost death scene with Tracy, where Freddy's doing some kung fu, also getting his ass kicked. Pay attention when Tracy burns her hand on the stove to get out the dream. Look at Freddy in the background, just being like, "Oh, what the hell is going on here? What is this?" Just hilarious. I don't know how the dream doctor person in this film, Yafin Kodo was a great actor. See Midnight Run, The Running Man. I don't know how he knows so much about dreams. I mean, this character should have been Neil. They should have brought back Neil for this role. But he knows a lot. You know, he tells Maggie to put on her damn 3D glasses, which is just a cue to the audience for us to put on our 3D glasses. But it's just a solid film. I do think that I would prefer John Doe to survive over Tracy. I think John Doe is one of the better characters in the film. He feels like our main character that we're following throughout. And I feel like Tracy is just one of the teens that could have been killed. Kill off all the teens. Just have that end be the doctor, Maggie, John Doe. I think would have been better. We get to the end. Freddy, as in the original, is brought out into the real world and fights his daughter locked in a room and loses in a one-on-one fight to the death with his daughter. What the hell, man? I mean, we've seen Freddy come out in the real world and whoop Jason's ass, but he can't do anything losing to his daughter here. And my theory on that, of course, is that Freddy never intended to kill his daughter because his attitude towards her is so unaggressive in this final scene. He's half fighting her, but half sort of giving her avenues to fight back, always allowing her to get the upper hand. So his heart wasn't in it. I don't know if Freddy wanted to get the upper hand and maybe convince her just to try to join him, but it doesn't look like Freddy at any point is actually trying to kill her, but she is trying to kill him, and she does with a classic Happy Father's Day line. That's such a weird line to throw in because it's like you have to release the film on like Father's Day weekend for that to make sense, and then future generations just like, was it established this movie takes place around Father's Day? Otherwise, it's like kind of a lazy line. Great montage over the end credits showing the past Freddy films, Freddy's best moments. I like Freddy's Dead. I don't know what all the hate about is about. I mean, nobody's ever explained to me why they hate the film. Is it bad characters? I don't think so. Is it bad death scenes? I don't think so. Funny Freddy. People hate Funny Freddy. They feel like Freddy's too over the top, too stand-up comedian, too Three Stooges here. And I get that. I just have no problem with it. I'm on board with the idea that this is a horror comedy. I'm laughing my ass off all throughout. So I'm okay with that. All right. Let's get now to Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Wes Craven, they wanted to make amends with him, bring him back into the franchise. You know, they come in on some of the profits and let him do whatever he wanted with a Freddy sequel. And Wes Craven watched the previous sequels and said, "What is this bullshit? My original vision, what the hell have you guys done with my character?" He didn't want to follow up on that, which I understand completely. And where would you go from Freddy's Dead anyways? I mean, canon-wise, what can you really do after that? I don't know. I mean, you could bring back Alice, which is interesting because in the original concept of Freddy's Dead, the John Doe character was going to be Jacob. And they didn't go that route, but it would kind of make sense if it was Jacob. But I'm glad they didn't go that route because that would almost imply that Alice is dead. Otherwise, where would Alice be? And I think Alice and Jacob probably left town after part 5 and got the hell out of there. And when Freddy came back, I don't think Freddy wanted anything to do with Alice anymore, because by the middle part 5, Alice is not only not scared of Freddy, she's very comfortable in the room with Freddy. And she's kicked his ass for two sequels now. I think Freddy was just like, I'm going to leave this Alice thing alone. I haven't had any success with this. I don't want anything to do with Alice. And of course, then you see Freddy within Freddy's Dead has a 10-year period where apparently dominates Springwood and kills everybody, makes the parents go crazy. And that doesn't really fit the narrative of the franchise either. Freddy's Dead feels almost as one-off-ish as Nightmare Part 2. None of that really makes sense. What have we seen from Freddy to imply that he's going to go through 7 or 8 different friendship groups and come out on top? I mean, every friendship group he's attacked has a character who's defeated him so far, so I don't even buy Freddy having 10 years of success. Usually gets defeated pretty easily, actually. So New Nightmare had to go in a different direction, in my opinion. And we get a meta-style, crazy, wild concept of there being an entity, a demon, that got used to playing the character of Freddy and was sort of trapped in the character of Freddy and would continue to be trapped as long as they kept making films. But once they stopped making Nightmare films, the demon wanted to come into our world. And to do that, he has to kill Heather Langenkamp, who is the gatekeeper, I guess, between the demon's world and our world. So you got Heather Langenkamp playing herself, Robert Englund playing himself, Wes Craven playing himself, Bob Shaye playing himself, a lot of cameos, a lot of fun sort of commentary on how the franchise has affected them. It's just a super meta concept. You could bring that concept back and do with Scream now if you want to even. The best scene in the film by far is Nancy realizing that she's talking to John Saxon, and John Saxon turns from John Saxon into her father, the cop. The character switches. He drives away. She turns around, and suddenly she realizes she's in the full Nancy garb, and she realizes she's looking at the Elm Street house, the Nancy house. The musical score kicks in right here, and it's just fantastic. Cream de la cream moment in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And this also movie is the best performance from Heather Langenkamp in the franchise. So to rank Heather Langenkamp's performances, number 1 is this, number 2 is the original, and number 3 is Dream Warriors. For some reason, she didn't actually click for me acting-wise in Dream Warriors. Kind of really monotone, wasn't really giving the speech as well. I mean, I guess she was on Hypnosil, so it kind of makes sense, but New Nightmare is fantastic. Oh, also to get some update ratings. Nightmare 4, Dream Master, I'm giving that, for me, a 3.5 out of 4. That's right, 3.5 out of 4. Nightmare 5, 2 stars. Not in the 1-star territory, but not good enough to get into the 3-star territory. And New Nightmare also 3.5 stars. So again, we have Nightmare 1, 3.5 stars. Nightmare 2, 3 stars. Nightmare 3, 4 stars. Number 4, 3.5 stars. Number 5, 2 stars. And then New Nightmare. Oh, also Freddy's Dead, 2.5 stars. I missed Freddy's Dead. 2.5 stars, Freddy's Dead. Not quite 3 stars, but not bombing the barrel on the franchise either. The remake, I'm going to count Freddy vs. Jason separately as his own separate thing, to be honest. But the remake, 1 star. Why? I don't want to get into, I don't want to talk that much about the remake. I've talked about it. There's another video I talked about the remake, but Platinum Dunes, what are you doing here? I don't understand. You break the cardinal sin of horror films. You made a boring film here. This film is boring as hell. How do you make a Nightmare on Elm Street film and it come out boring as hell? You're replaying scenes from the original with like CGI added now, and the effects don't look as good as the practical effects back from 1984. What the hell, man? Just stay away from the remake. Don't watch the remake. I know there's fans of the remake, and I understand there's a cool concept in micronaps, but Rooney Mara, what is she doing here? She hated being on set. This is her worst experience in Hollywood, and it shows on screen, giving the most flat, lifeless, dull performance you could possibly give. Kyle Gardner, I think his name is, Kyle Gallagher. He's pretty good though. So that's where we're at pretty much. I mean, that's, that, by the way, let me reduce that from 1 star down to 0.5 stars for the remake. So it's pretty much all my thoughts on the Nightmare franchise. I think, can you continue the franchise without Robert Englund? It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. He owns that character. He is that character. He is Freddy personified. You got to do a hell of a casting job to make fans not think of Freddy in that way. My pitch has always been, you have a cameo from Robert Englund's Freddy where he, as in the dream world, gives his dream demon powers to a new killer. That way, there's no Freddy comparisons. The new killer, you carry the same concept. You know, somebody who feels like he wants revenge on parents from something that happened to them. So Freddy passes the torch, and you carry the concept forward with a new dream killer, but like Freddy himself is retired or just no longer there. That's the way to do it. In my opinion, that's the way you restart the franchise. But just doing Freddy, I would let that go. I would continue the Elm Street franchise with a new dream killer. And look, Robert can still do an animated voice, I'm sure. So why not do a damn animated voice cartoon where you can use Freddy's voice? I mean, that would be fantastic as well. Or a video game. The hell's a Nightmare on Elm Street video game? That'd be fantastic as well. Freddy vs. Jason, I have a separate video for that also. I just kind of consider that outside the franchise, but I hate Monica Kina's performance, and I hate the teen characters in the first half. I love the second half. I think the first half, Freddy vs. Jason, is probably the best 45 minutes in either franchise, and I do think that Freddy won at the end with that wink. Perfect ending to Freddy vs. Jason. All right, so that's pretty much all my thoughts and theories on the Elm Street franchise. In the comments, give me your thoughts on Elm Street. And this will probably be the last Elm Street video I do for quite a long time. I mean, deep dove the shit out of the franchise with all types of things. Oh, let me give also my favorite Freddy line is "Welcome to Primetime, bitch." That scene from part 3. That's my favorite Freddy line. Freddy's Nightmares. If you get a chance, there's the pilot episode's very interesting. It follows Freddy as a human, what the parents did to him. I don't know if it's like canon with the film franchise, but if you're just curious about what a Freddy prequel would look like, watch the opening episode of Freddy's Nightmares. And there's 2 or 3 other episodes that really are Freddy centric, so I would check those out as well. Music videos. Freddy has a music video with the Fat Boys. That's hilarious. And then the Will Smith song "Nightmare on My Street." It's probably the best tribute to Freddy there is. But Freddy's again everywhere in pop culture. No question. The design. You can YouTube look up Freddy's hotline, and it has commercials for his hotline, his 1-800 hotline. So that's hilarious in itself. So, all right. Until next time, you guys take care.